Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tell Us Your Story with Molly and Tina. We are thrilled for our monthly guest, Jack Canfield, and welcome, Jack. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jack.
So, Molly, my esteemed co-host, would you like to get the ball rolling for what we're going to talk to Jack about today?
Absolutely. I would love to. Thank you for being here, Jack. We're always excited to have you with us. We always learn new things and you give us lots of food for thought. So since it's the holiday season, I thought I'd kick it off with what is your favorite holiday tradition?
Well, something we're about to do this weekend, which is decorating our tree. Uh, it, right now, it'll just be my wife, myself, and my stepdaughter because of COVID. But the reality is, normally we have more of the kids around, and usually after Thanksgiving, we will go out and buy the tree together, and then we will bring it home. We have a ton of ornaments that we've collected over the years, and we'll put on a bunch of Christmas music. We have a really good stereo system in the living room. And as we put up the ornaments, they're all, with a few exceptions. I mean, there's some normal like red and blue and yellow and green balls, but mostly they're ornaments that have memories associated with them that, we bought to symbolize something that we'd experienced in the previous year. One year we had a little, what do you call it, ritual where everyone had to bring an ornament in the family and put it on the tree and say what it represented for them. And the ornaments is a spider with a web, like a crystal web. And it was my daughter saying how she had made so many new friends that year. It was a network of friends that she had created, like the network of the web. So that's probably our major one. And then usually we open the presents Christmas morning. And the kids, I have a grandson who's 7. Unfortunately, he won't be joining us this year.
Oh, no.
But normally, we keep the door closed and we see if Santa came. And, we say, oh, he came, but we have to eat breakfast first. And we just build up the tension and make them suffer, So when they finally go and they run in and some of the presents are unwrapped and they just immediately see them. Like one year, he was totally into Star Wars characters. So there was a huge, a stormtrooper and Darth Vader and things like that. They were all about 2 feet tall that we found online. And that's just a thrill. And that's about it. Then we have the turkey dinner usually.
Awesome.
Wow.
One year, my older son decided when he was pretty young, he didn't believe in Santa. And I didn't want my younger son to miss out on the magic of it all. And so I said, okay, well, let's camp out in the living room under the tree all night on Christmas Eve, and we'll take shifts and see if he comes. And let me tell you, Christmas was tough after being up all night, but he was sitting so diligently, just waiting for Santa to see if he was real. And, he got so tired, he was hallucinating. Oh, I saw him, he was walking. It is one of the best memories we have together. So he still believes to this day that Santa is real.
I remember as a 6-year-old lying in bed on Christmas Eve, and we had these blinds that came down. They were translucent, but if there was light outside and you put your hand in front of the window, you'd see the shadow of your hand against the blind. And I would have sworn I saw a sleigh and reindeers, going by. I must have obviously created it, but it was so real for years. I told my parents I saw the sleigh.
You might have.
These are great Christmas stories. Actually, mine also very quickly. My son, we send, I guess you do too in America, right? In Canada, the kids send letters to Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the postal code here is HOHO, right?
Oh,
And
that's so cute.
ho, ho, ho is the postal code. And we did it every year. My son did it every year. And when he was 8 years old, actually just after my divorce, so it was really well timed, he actually got a response from Santa.
Oh, wow.
We got a letter in the mail from the North Pole from Santa Claus. I think I was more thrilled than he was. To be quite honest. I couldn't believe it. It was just really loving and really well timed. So our own little Christmas miracle. And actually, we have a tree shortage here in Canada right now in our neck of the woods. They're flying off like hotcakes because people are spending, I think, more Christmases at home or more doing more cocooning. So there's a shortage of trees here right now. Not for you guys?
Yeah, we had a shortage of small turkeys for Thanksgiving
Oh, yeah, we did.
because everyone normally would buy like a 20-pound turkey because they'd have like 8 or 9 or 20 people showing up at their house. And with everyone sequestering at home, like we had like 4 people. And so we didn't need a big turkey, but you couldn't find a small one. They were all sold out.
That's interesting.
Huge. Turkey casserole, turkey and
Yeah.
Well, talking about things that are interesting, Jack, have you done any, even though it's COVID and all of that, and we're keeping a little closer to home, there's many different ways of taking courses and still, advancing in our business or in our personal interests. Are there any interesting courses that you've taken recently in recent months?
Not really. What I've been doing more of is I've been watching more TED Talks on YouTube. And I just watched 2 last night on Ikigai, which is there was a book written called Ikigai, but Ikigai basically means life purpose in Japanese. And the book was created about the island of Okinawa and how it's one of the 5 blue zones on Earth where people are living to be, high level of people living to be over 100. And so the people have been studying them, but what they've been finding in addition to diet is just their attitude toward life, and very positive, very active, but also this idea that everyone seems to have discovered a purpose. And once you know your purpose, then you're happy. And a lot of the people now are writing about this, doing seminars on it. And I watched a couple last night because I'm getting involved with some people doing business in Japan. And so we were talking about Ikigai, and one of the reasons they wanted me involved was because they felt I was someone who understood about life purpose, one of the things I teach. And so watching these YouTube videos, the TED Talks were great. And then the problem with watching a TED Talk is on the right-hand side of YouTube, they list about 20 others, and you go, oh, I want to know about that. And, discover your life purpose in 5 minutes. I want to watch that. Oh, the greatest secrets to success. I teach success. I want to know what she thinks it is. So all of a sudden, I'll be an hour watching these 12-minute to 18-minute videos. So I've been learning a lot, taking notes, incorporating some of the great stories and metaphors into what I do. I'm thinking about taking a course in terms of, I joined a network marketing company last year as part of the response to COVID, and wanted my staff to all be involved. So in case our enrollments went down, which they did for a while, in trainings, because live trainings we couldn't do, that they would all have another source of income. So I wouldn't have to fire anybody, that people would still be making close to or the same as what they were. And they're all doing very well. And now that we're all back on normal salaries, everyone's making more. So anyway, there's a number of courses out there on how to be a network marketing pro and things that I'm learning. Some of the things that used to work when I did network marketing, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago with a company called Isogenics, which is a weight loss program primarily. Things have changed because it's online now more so. And so what are the ways to do that? So I'm toying with signing up for a 7-week course on that, but mostly it's been TED Talks and TEDx Talks.
Okay. That one sounds really interesting. How do you spell that? It sounds like Ikigai, but I'm sure it's not the same.
Well, the guy made it really funny. He said Ikigai. He said he said a fat guy in a green Speedo would be an Ikigai.
oh,
It's spelled Ikigai, Ikigai.
Okay, definitely have to look him up.
Check it out. It's interesting because what they talk about is that your life is working really well when you have an interface between 4 aspects: what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can make money doing. So
Right.
when those 4 things overlap, you find what they would call your ikigai, your mission, the thing that's going to be you love to do it, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you can get paid for it. So, and a lot of the people talked about discovering their ikigai in their 40s or 50s when they finally decided, I'm sick of working for someone else doing what I don't love doing. I'm going to do what I love doing. And I discovered photography, or I discovered, this one guy was studying longevity, and that's how he got into Ikigai. And originally was the Okinawans. He went and visited, but it's a great philosophy. It's worth looking into.
Very interesting. So Molly, are we ready to play?
Let me ask him one more question just based on that, because it's something I've always been curious. I know you've done so many things in your life with being a teacher, and obviously now you're a teacher of millions, but if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing? If you hadn't chosen this path, what do you think? Would you be a famous guitar player, or what?
I would love to be an entertainer. Famous isn't necessarily that important, but successful in the sense you're making a living. I've been telling artists lately, because I have 3 sons who are musicians and a stepdaughter who's a musician and an artist, that if you're seeking fame, you're going to be frustrated most of your career, because only about 3% of artists actually make it. Like the person behind you probably makes a living, but isn't necessarily in the Museum of Modern Art. Maybe he or she is, I don't know. But most people, that's not going to happen. So the reality is that you have to enjoy the making of the music. You have to enjoy painting. And again, part of Ikigai too is enjoying the process, not always focusing on the journey or the destination. Because if you focus on the destination, you're very rarely there, because it's always out ahead of you. It's like the donkey with the carrot in front of him on a stick. So as he keeps walking forward, the carrot keeps moving forward because it's attached to a pole, it's attached to his neck. So I think that enjoying what you're doing is critical. So I would say I love music. I love singing. I would love to be a performer. I would also, I often said, I don't know, as I get older now, I'm not so sure, but for many, many years, I said I'd be a tennis instructor, because I love being outside teaching. And I took some tennis lessons way back when. I thought, what a great way to make a living. This is so cool. So that would be another option, something like that.
Yeah, even though this may not be in some famous museum, I'm a lover of art, and I always, like I said, like to name my art. And this one is called Manifestation. And every time I look at it, I feel like things are coming to me. So it's not only what the person is doing, but how much it means to the person who gets it. So
no, it's interesting. My wife, we have a lot of art, and every wall, and I've got a closet with things that are not on the wall that we sometimes rotate. But for my wife has an artist she loves, and I don't like that much. And almost all the art we have, we both love. But she found this one piece last year that she just, the same guy, and she just, it would have been like telling a child your dog died not to let her buy it, So I did, but I've grown to love it more. Art's so personal,
It's so personal, personal.
Yeah,
we love art for sure.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is play a little game, and Jack doesn't even know what we're about to do. And Jack, I'm just wondering, have you ever heard or seen this game being played by Vogue, where they go and meet all these celebrities and they give them in their home like many different rapid fire questions, and you just have to reply off the cuff? Have you seen or heard that before?
I haven't, but I'm game.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to start off. So the idea is just not to think about it, right? Just give the answer, and then we'll move on to the next. And I'm going to have 10 questions, and then we're going to take a little bit more time for some conversation. And then Molly is going to give her interesting questions. So the first one, Jack, what is your current obsession?
My current obsession, ping pong.
Okay. Oh, I love ping pong.
I love ping pong.
So, Jack, who for you is the most impressive person in the world?
Impressive. Wow. I don't know. Barack Obama comes to mind. It would always be people that have made huge impact, huge, playing at the big level. Mandela, Martin Luther King, people like that. So, yeah. So I'm not going to do a long answer since you want quick answers. But
I admire your listening skills. Okay, what's the most rewarding?
Tina, he doesn't feel good. Be nice to him.
No, it's okay.
What's the most rewarding trip you've ever taken?
Rewarding, probably the month we spent in India in February last year at a Ayurvedic center, where we were detoxing and getting massages every day and doing all that. And the second thing that popped in my mind was a week in Ecuador last November, where we did sacred journeys with plant medicine for a week with the shamans.
Very cool. And what's your best way to decompress?
Playing Words with Friends, the one where you play, it's like a speed game and you have to go really fast, and you're playing 5 people against 5 people, and you have no time to think about anything but that, so everything else drops away.
That's very cool. Do you remember the name of it?
It's called Words with Friends Lightning Rounds.
Okay.
And a lot of different games they have.
Okay. Thank you. And what's a cause that's close to your heart?
The Pachamama Alliance, they're dedicated to bringing about a totally ecologically sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on Earth. They do that by helping preserve the rainforest, and then also bringing the knowledge of the shamans of the rainforest to the north, to us, so we have that wisdom. And it's an amazing organization. That's who I went to Ecuador with once and did sacred journeys there with plant medicine. That's how I got introduced to it.
Beautiful. And what's your favorite color?
Blue.
And do you have a nickname?
No, it's just always been, my real legal name's John Taylor Canfield, so Jack's my nickname.
Okay. And what's your all-time favorite?
My wife sometimes calls me Bunny Breath. She used to raise bunnies as a child, and she loved the smell of their breath. So when she's in love with me, which is not every second, when she's really happy with me, she calls me Bunny Breath. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
That's sweet.
Well, talking about romantic feelings, what's your all-time favorite romantic movie?
All-time favorite romantic movie. Wow, nothing comes to mind real quick. Boy, I don't know. I don't think I can't think of one.
Okay, just to trigger you, my all-time favorite is The Notebook.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I like that movie. I'm sure there's something else out there, but I saw that.
Love Actually is a good one.
Yeah.
That's another good one.
I'll bring two on my list.
Oh, I know. What's the one where she said you had me at a low?
Oh, When Harry Met Sally? Is that the one?
Jerry Maguire.
I'm not very good at queuing you up, but that's a really great one.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's the funniest person you know?
My wife.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing.
She could be a writer for Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow. We'll have to get her on sometime. And what's your favorite sport?
Basketball.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was torn between basketball and football. I played football and I like to watch it, but playing basketball is something I can still do at my age. So I would say basketball. I have a basketball thing, in my driveway. Basketball net and backboard.
That's very cool. Okay, so that was it. That was the 10 questions that went by really fast, actually. So perfect. Thank you so much for playing.
That's awesome. So I get asked my 10 later, Jack, so I'm excited about that. But in my personal coaching practice, in addition to the success principles, obviously, I talk a lot about thoughts and beliefs and how they impact our success. And I'm just curious, what is your favorite strategy for dealing with negative thoughts?
Well, it depends on whether they're conscious or unconscious. If you know you're thinking a negative thought, then it's a matter of choosing to replace it. So something I learned years ago from what was called the Silva mind control, now it's called the Silva method, is a term that when you hear yourself saying something negative, if you're worried, you just say cancel, cancel. So you're telling your subconscious mind, don't listen to that, because the subconscious takes every thought as a command. And then you replace it with a positive thought, usually the opposite. I don't have time for that. Oh, cancel, cancel. I can make time for that, or I have enough time for everything I want to do. It's a high priority. The biggest issue for most people, for me, Molly, is that they don't know what the negative belief is that they have. And
Right.
that's when I love to use the technique that we teach called identifying and releasing blocks, where you look at what is something you're wanting to create in your life that you're not creating, something you want to manifest. It doesn't seem to be happening. Where are you stuck? And then you have people close their eyes, get in touch with that. Once they get that, what are they feeling about it? Like resentment, resignation, fear, whatever. And then scan their body to find out where do they feel the most tension, tightness, or pain or numbness. And then we go inside that. Is there a feeling inside that? And we go back to the earliest time you felt that. Almost always goes back to childhood, sometime between 3 and 8. And sometimes it's gone back to people in their 20s. And instantly they get in touch with an event where they were having an emotional reaction, made that decision. I'm not smart enough. I can't ask for what I want. It's not okay to make noise, whatever it is. And then we can reverse that, with some interaction with a parental, like your current wise self. What would it say to that child? Replace it with a new thought, come back, make an affirmation. One of the people I've been working with recently, who's a world-class aromatherapist, is a woman named Pam Hunter. And she says you need to say your affirmation 21 times every day for 21 days. So, and I don't think most people do that. They'll say it a few times in the morning and put it on their mirror. So I've been doing that with some of the work I'm doing with myself and my clients, and it seems to be working very well.
Why this 21?
I don't know the answer to that. But when she told me that, and I realized how effective she'd been in working with me and my wife separately, not as a couple, but separately, I just thought, whatever she says, I'll do it. And at the time, I didn't question it. I do know that things seem to come in 3s and 7s a lot in terms of consciousness. And so some combination of that, I guess.
That's great.
Jack, recently I interviewed a friend of yours, Ariel Ford, and we had an amazing, she's amazing. And she credits you for contributing towards her first marriage, actually, and using the law of attraction, specifically the law of attraction is what she's using and talks about in her practice and with her book, The Soulmate Secret. And I'm just wondering and she's got I highly, highly recommend that book. And basically what she said is she took, I think, a lot of ideas from people like yourself and the Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson. And she said, if I can use the law of attraction to attract success into my life, why not use it in order to attract love into my life? And it's really interesting how she was able to, individualize that and using the concepts from the law of attraction. So a personal question for you now, Jack, regarding that, like, we've all, after a certain time, we've all had, several relationships. Maybe we've been, married a few times, etc. What do you think are the greatest lessons or takeaways from your previous relationships and even up till today?
Well, I say the first thing I want to say is I don't think, when we had these vows, until death do us part, the average life expectancy was late 20s, early 30s. That was back in the times of Rome and, all that stuff going on, Greece. And so death do us part wasn't that long. And so, like my first marriage was only 5 years. I never should have got married in the first place. So the lesson there was my self-esteem was so low. I wasn't able to, when I realized we shouldn't get married, which was a couple of weeks before the wedding, I didn't have enough self-esteem to tell 250 people, don't come. They bought tickets, there was hotel reservations, all the in-law, it was like, so the good news is I got 2 wonderful children and a grandchild out of it. So I'm not regretting that part of it. But it was a marriage that probably never should have happened. We were just too different in so many ways, values, personality, and all. We were attracted to each other for some of the wrong reasons, which was very, very passionate in the beginning. My second marriage lasted 20 years, but it kind of came to an end. And a lot of people think, well, you didn't make your marriage last forever. Well, not every relationship is meant to last forever. So that's one of the lessons I've learned, that sometimes you just come to a place where we're not serving each other anymore, and that's okay. So that's another lesson. So those are the first 2. I think the other lesson I would say is that I traveled a lot, and I still do, except for this year with COVID. And I've learned a lot about being home. It's like how important contact is on a regular basis. Um, so I think if I had to do it over again, I would have figured out a way to make a living with less travel, because I think being away as much as I was a drain on the relationship. And so that, I think that's something I also learned. Um, I think I did learn in the process of all that, the 5 love languages. I think those are really important. The idea that I'm a nurturing touch person and my wife is a quality time person. And I'm always wanting to hug her. And she's a very short hugger. I would hang in there for like 3 to 5 minutes. But I know that's not her language. And so I need to sit and just make eye contact with her and look her in the eye and say, tell me more, dear. And, not just run in and drop a piece of news and leave, her office and go to, I have to sit for a while. If I'm going to go in, I know this is a 15-minute conversation minimum, or it's not going to work. And so walks have been really useful because they last anywhere from a half hour to an hour. We're talking, we're together. Date night, so that we now, Sunday's our day. I do not schedule anything, rarely, on a Sunday. And so that's from the time we get up till the time we go to bed. That is my day with her. We play ping pong, which we're really loving. We just started that about a month ago. We had the table, but we weren't using it. And we play Scrabble, at least 3 games. I beat her in ping pong. She beats me regularly in Scrabble. So we kind of end the day without one resenting the other. We make love, we have dinner, we take walks, we sit out in the sun, whatever it might be. So I think that's really important. Consistency for someone with quality time. They need to know that there's quality time on the schedule. It's not just going to be random, because I tend to be a hit and run kind of, quick hug, I'm good. Quick conversation, I feel connected, but she needs that. And so learning that languaging and that's been really helpful for me. Yeah, those are the main things I would say.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Great advice. So my next question is that we all have moments in our lives we wish we could do over. Do you have a moment in your life that you would choose to do differently if you had the chance, and what would it be?
That's a great question. I would probably say where I have a challenge, not so much now, but I did for many, many years, was waiting too long to confront things that needed to get confronted. Like I think back, there was a woman who worked for me and she was not doing her job. I opened up her file drawer one day. Part of her job was to answer all the incoming letters, kind of customer service type stuff. And I opened this huge file drawer and it was just filled full of unopened envelopes going back months. And I realized, it's one thing not to do it. It's another thing to ask for help, say it's not getting done. We need it, whatever it might be. And she was a relative of one of our employees that we hired, and kind of firing someone that everyone knows, and it was hard. And I almost did it. It was right before Christmas, and she kind of gave me an opening and said, if you think I'm not doing the job, it would be okay if you terminated me. It was a couple weeks before Christmas, and I couldn't imagine her not getting a paycheck over the Christmas holidays. So I didn't fire her. And then about 4 months later, I went to fire her, and now she didn't want to go. And she sued me for wrongful termination. And, it's like, because I was avoiding the confrontation with her. I didn't want to say you're really incompetent and you need to go. And I would say that I probably had about 5 situations in my life where I waited too long. And it got worse. It's like the piece of food in the back of the refrigerator you don't see, and it just goes green mold because it gets worse and worse when you don't attend to it. And I would say that was one of them. I think when my second wife and I divorced, I think we put off that conversation longer than it should have been. And I think I made it more complicated. And I would say one more thing was, when I got a divorce, there were 2 lawyers in town. One was this real, for lack of a better term, ball buster. And I didn't want to be associated with that. So I hired this really nice lawyer, and my ex-wife hired the ball buster.
Oh, no.
And if I ever had to do it again, I would go hire her, and then I would have fired her a week later. But now my wife couldn't hire her because there'd be conflict of interest. But I never did things that strategically, because I was always the nice guy. And so I would say, just the willingness to confront crucial conversations and have uncomfortable conversations. Been a number of those in my life that I would do over. I just step up and get it done.
Yep. Such great advice. Thank you.
So, Jack, I'm sure, a lot of your life experience has been fodder for your studying, and you're coming up with different books and principles and training and all of that, because we're better to borrow from in terms of things that we think we can be helpful for, but then are from our own life experience. And we all had an experience together during the training in September where we had to come up with our own story. And as Molly and I know very well, it kind of triggered some vulnerabilities in both of us. So do you mind if I ask, are there moments from your life, let's say, where you have, there's been things that have gone on where you feel like your vulnerability was triggered and you were willing to either share that with others in the interest of them growing, or to maybe roll it into some type of concept or training? And what was it?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the book, the Aladdin Factor, which is about asking for what you want.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine named John D. Martini, if you ever get to interview him, you'll enjoy it. He's a great guy. He teaches that pretty much we write books to ourselves, that whatever issue we need to deal with, we study it. And we develop curriculum around our own issues. Like I developed a self-esteem curriculum back in the 1970s, mainly because I didn't have much. And I didn't realize it at the time. That's why I was doing it. But we always say what you need to learn, if you teach it, you learn it. But so I was not good at asking. I was always like, do it yourself. Don't ask. I learned when I was in the rainforest in Ecuador or Costa Rica, when we were doing plant medicine one night, I realized that when I was a baby, my dad didn't like to hear the baby cry, me, first child. And so he would tell my mother, put him in the car. And when he stops crying, you can bring him back in. And then he would want her to come back in because he didn't want to be alone. So here's my mom, 20, he's 24. Neither of them had a lot of great parenting skills. And so I would cry in the car wanting comfort and no one would come. So at some level, I decided pre-verbally, there's no point in asking because I'm not going to get anything. So it was like I had to become my own vehicle to get what I wanted. It's like produce it, create it. Don't be a asker. And so I didn't ask for much most of my life. It was very hard for me. It was like, and then my mother said things like, I had a rich aunt. We were poor, but I had a rich aunt. And she said, don't ask your aunt for anything. It's an imposition. It's rude. You'll make her feel uncomfortable. So there was a lot of conditioning that went along with that as well. And then military school I went to for a few years. And that was like, you are your own person, like buck up, be strong, like don't be a wimp. So there was a lot of that going on. And so for me, when I wrote the Aladdin Factor, how to ask for and get anything you want, I think I shared a lot in that book about how I came to grips with that. My wife, we lived, my previous wife, Georgia, we lived in Marin County for a while on the side of a hill. So we parked down here and you had to go up 3 flights of like outdoor stairs to get to the kitchen door of this hillside house. And we would go to the grocery store and get like 3 or 4 or 5 bags of food. And then we'd carry one up each. And then she'd start to unbag everything while I was the mountain goat going back and forth up and down the hill. And I kind of resented it, but I never said anything about it. And one day I finally did. I told you it was difficult to have these confrontational conversations back then. And I finally said, I don't think it's fair that I should have to carry everything up. But you just stood up, She said, well, why didn't you ask me to help? And I said, and you would have just said yes? She said, of course. And it was like, was like a revelation, so I write about that in the book. And so much of that book was about my own coming to grips with it's okay to ask. And then how do you ask and how do you do it so you get what you want? And there's a lot more technology in that book that I learned. But yeah, that would be an example of how my own story illustrates the content that I brought forward. And I think, too, I teach something called the total truth process, which starts with anger, and underneath anger, there's hurt, and underneath hurt, there's an unfulfilled I want. And then there's a place of regret, like I helped create a situation. In other words, there are no victims in life. So if I'm angry about something, how do I help set it up? And it gets down to forgiveness at the end. And that came out of my own experience, of just being, I had a lot of anger when I was younger. And when I realized underneath that was really hurt, and hurt was vulnerable. And military guys that played rugby, guys that played football, we didn't cry, right? And so that was another big issue for me, was like just learning to bring that forward and own my sadness, own my hurt, own my unfulfilled wants.
I think it's really cool also that well, thank you for sharing that, but also it's really cool as a man that you're expressing that now and that it's come through in your books. I do have that book on my shelf, but it's been a lot of years since I read it. I think I'll go and dust it off and have a look at it. But you mentioned somewhere in your writing about one day you were at a seminar and you asked for a blue binder. You had a binder of a color you
Right.
didn't like.
Right.
And then what happened after that?
That was a huge, huge, huge epiphany for me. I was sitting in a workshop with a woman named Cherie Carter-Scott, who's a wonderful trainer. And she handed out these like steno pads. They were the notebooks to take notes on. And they were different colors: yellow, kind of maroon, blue, purple, whatever. And I sat down, you came in and you had to sit down in a row on the chair. Kind of, she'd been through apps, and that's how they do it, landmark, I guess now. And so I get to my chair and there's a yellow binder, and I don't like the color yellow that much. I mean, yellow sun and all that's great, but I can't wear yellow. I've had my colors done. If I wear a yellow tie, it makes me look blotchy, and you would never find me wearing anything yellow. And so I got this yellow notebook and I'm not liking it. And it's just a freaking notebook, right? And so finally Cherie comes up and she says, by the way, if you got a color notebook you don't like, trade with somebody. And I turned to the woman next to me who had blue. I said, would you mind trading with trade? She said, no, I love yellow better than blue. Give me your notebook. So we traded. And I thought, wow, that was easy. Now, I could have done that, but it never would have occurred to me. I was just sitting there in kind of poor me resentment. This was like 30 years ago. But it was just a huge, huge awakening of like, wow, I can ask for things like that, So yeah.
One thing I love about you, Jack, is you're always willing to tell very vulnerable stories. I might still be mad if I got a yellow notebook, by the way.
Well, learn to ask.
I will. So shall we go on with the questions, Tina?
Yeah. Do you want to take your turn with the game?
Yeah, I think I will. So, okay. All right, Jack, you played it once, but we're going to play it again. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and don't think about it, just off the cuff. Tell me what your answer is. Okay? You ready? Describe yourself in 3 words.
Loving, visionary, and irreverent.
Great. What's the biggest surprise you've ever had?
What comes to mind is a birthday where I had it was a big birthday party with all these assistants from a training, because it was happening during that time. And there must have been 30 people there, and this big box cake. And I went to carve it. They gave me the knife and I went to carve it, and it was a cardboard box with icing on it. And it was just a practical joke. And it was like, but everyone just got the biggest kick out of it, So the next year we have another party, and I tell everyone, you won't believe what happened last year. Bob, who was one of the assistants, I said he got this cake, and it was a box, like a cereal box with icing on it, and everyone laughed. And I go to carve the cake, and they've done it again. I really got had 2 years in a row. I guess that would be the biggest one.
That's awesome. What's your worst habit?
staying up too late, playing Words with Friends, which I talked about earlier in the round of questions.
That's awesome. What book has impacted you the most?
Wow. There are so many. Probably, well, what came to mind was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is one of the first books I read about law of attraction. But as you can see behind me, I've read thousands of books.
Yeah,
But that
I
one
read
took
that. I read that book every year. I love it.
Good.
What's a fun thing about you most people don't know?
That I worked my way through college after the first year of cleaning dorms and cutting grass and getting up and serving breakfast in the dormitories. I realized I didn't want to do that. And so I got really good at playing poker and pool. And basically, I went to Harvard as a scholarship student. There were a lot of rich kids who couldn't do either of those, but they thought they could. So I basically could earn $300 in a weekend playing poker. And that helped my pay my way through college.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My son would love to play poker with you. What has been your most embarrassing moment?
Most embarrassing moment. God. Wow, nothing's coming to mind. I'm sure it was being caught doing something I shouldn't do, probably by my mother. I mean, but I don't have a specific memory.
That's okay. That's okay. Who is Jack Canfield's personal growth guru?
I don't think there's any one person right now. The person I spend the most time with that has an impact on me is a guy named Dawa Tarchin Phillips. He's a Buddhist monk, and he's a friend. And he's a lama in the Tibetan tradition, and but he's married, drinks tequila. We play pool. And he meditated for 14 hours, 12 hours a day for 14 years in a monastery in France. So he's just so deep. So just on a casual way to be with him. I once asked him, I said, how many hours a day do you meditate? And he said, I'm never not meditating. Meaning
Wow.
every moment he's 100% aware, mindful. So he's been very helpful for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your superpower?
I think being able to process people through their stuck places, which I don't get to do that often, but I have a couple private clients right now that I'm working with, and I'm doing it with them, and I love it.
Good. I've been on the receiving side of that, so I know what it's all about. What are 3 qualities you admire most in another person?
Compassion and unconditional love, I'll put those together. Courage to take risks, and a sense of humor.
Good. Those are great. Who has helped you most in your life?
Well, my wife comes to mind first. You can fool a lot of people, but you can't fool the person you live with every day. So if I'm ever going off on some tangent or thinking I'm better than I am, or going down a wrong path, she has the ability. She has got a great, I call her a sniffer. She can sniff out people who are not there for the right reason, people who are just trying to take advantage of me, people that are not trustworthy. So she's been really, really helpful that way. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate those honest answers.
Thank you.
What a great note to end on, right? With fun and with some truths, some amazing truths from you, Jack. Thank you so much for coming on with us today. This is so much fun, right, Molly? Every time we really look forward to our monthly chats with you, Jack. And especially since you were feeling a little bit under the weather today, we really appreciate it and send you lots of healing thoughts. Any last words for you, Molly?
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just remembered my most embarrassing moment.
Oh, good. That's it.
It took a while to come up from the unconscious where I tried to bury it, I guess. But I was in Connecticut. I was in a motel overnight to go to teach a training for teachers the next day. I was working for a company at the time called Insight Training Seminars. This was about, I guess, God, 30, 40 years ago. I was in my 30s. And I come out of the hotel, I get in my rental car, I'm going to drive to the school, or I'm going to do this thing. And there's a sign that says no left turn. I look around, I don't see any cops. There's not a lot of traffic. I take a left turn. As soon as I take the left turn, I hear whoop, 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 whoop. I get pulled over. Cop comes up and he goes, sir, are you aware that there was a no left turn sign there? I said, yes, I was, but I wasn't aware that you were anywhere. I missed that one. Then he said, are you aware you don't have your seatbelt on? And in Connecticut, you're supposed to wear your seatbelt. I said, I am aware there's a law and I'm aware I'm not doing it. And finally he looked down and he said, are you aware your pants are unzipped? And I said, no, I wasn't aware of that. And I looked down and sure enough, I hadn't zipped my pants up. So he said, why are you in such a hurry? I said, well, I'm going to the school to run a training. He said, what's it's on? I said, it's an awareness training. And he said, well, good luck for those teachers.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was so funny. It just popped into my mind after you said that.
Good one.
Well, you're always so great about coming on with us, and we love your stories. And
Yes.
I always think about what you say for a long time afterwards. So you taught us so much, and the people that hear this will learn so much from you. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I enjoy it always.
Thanks again, everybody. And thanks for listening. And we'll see you again next month. Goodbye, everybody.